Imagine sitting down with a dense 300-page textbook on Monday and closing the last page on Wednesday night. Every key idea locked in long-term memory, ready for an exam, a client presentation, or a product launch. No highlighters bleeding through the margins, no frantic rereading the night before, no guilt about another half-finished title on the shelf. That transformation from passive page turning to active absorption comes from a single 3-part framework called the Triforce method. Over the next 10 minutes, you will learn how to triple the speed at which you process nonfiction, identify the 20% of content that drives 80% of the value, and anchor what matters so firmly that you can recall it weeks later without a second glance. The system works for textbooks, business guides, research papers, or any information-dense material you need to master quickly. It is not magic, it is mechanics. Optimize input, filter ruthlessly, then compress into memory. Once the mechanics become habit, the results feel magical. First, a quick reality check. Most adults read between 250 and 300 words per minute, the same pace they speak. The eyes can physically track far more, but an internal voice, subvocalization, pronounces every word inside the skull, capping speed at the rate of speech. Think of it as a governor on an engine. Remove the governor, and the same engine instantly gains RPM. The first pillar of the Triforce method is exactly that. Remove the speech bottleneck so the visual system can operate at redline without damage to comprehension. Neurologists call the switch from see-say-hear-think to see-think lexical access, and it is the same pathway you use when you recognize a stop sign while driving. You do not sound out stop, the shape delivers meaning straight to consciousness. We will replicate that zero-latency pathway for every paragraph you read. Begin with Rapid Serial Visual Presentation, RSVP for short. Open any free RSVP trainer, Spreeder, Dictator, Reading Bee, it does not matter, and paste the text you need to cover. Set the display to 3 words at a time, centered in the same screen location at 400 words per minute to start. The moment the first triplet flashes, your prehistoric brain panics, it wants the old verbal crutch. Resist. Let the words hit the visual cortex directly. After 5 minutes, drop the word count to 2 and raise speed to 460. By the end of the first 20-minute session, you will feel the internal monologue sputter, then fade, exactly like background noise when you enter a flow state. Close the software, pick up a paper book, and slide a pen under each line at the same 460 pace. The tracker prevents regression, the unconscious microback, skips that steal 20% of average reading time, while the RSVP conditioning keeps subvocalization dormant. Repeat the drill twice daily for 1 week. Benchmarks collected across 3 university pilot studies show a reliable jump from an average of 280 WPM to 520 WPM with no statistically significant drop in comprehension. That is an 85% velocity increase before we even touch strategy. Speed without direction is just rapid skimming, so Pillar 2 installs a decision layer that treats every book like a gold mine. Blast through the worthless gravel. Slow only when you spot the gleam of a nugget. Vilfredo Pareto noticed in 1896 that 80% of Italy's land was owned by 20% of the population. The same distribution appears in book content. Roughly 4/5 of the pages exist to support, repeat, or dramatize the core 20%. Your job is to locate that payoff pocket as fast as possible, then allocate cognitive horsepower accordingly. Here is the field manual. Before Chapter 1, spend 90 seconds on an aerial reconnaissance. Read the table of contents, the preface, and the final summary paragraph. Authors usually telegraph their central thesis in these metasections. Next, flip 200 pages in and read a middle paragraph aloud. The density of insight relative to anecdote tells you instantly whether the core lives up front, in the middle, or is sprinkled throughout. Mark the highest yield segments with a pencil dot. Those dots are your future slowdown zones. Now start the rapid pass, eyes cruising at the new 520 baseline. When you hit a dot, evidence, framework, counterintuitive claim, drop tracker speed by 40%, engage the internal voice just enough to paraphrase the idea aloud, then accelerate again. Think of it as highway driving. Cruise at 70, downshift to 45 when the road bends, then right back to 70. The technique is adaptive speed, not perpetual turbo. Students who combined RSVP training with adaptive pacing scored 33% higher on surprise quizzes than classmates who read every word at uniform pace because their limited attention minutes were spent on material most likely to be tested. By the end of Pillar 2, you have torn through the book once, harvesting the golden 20%, while the remaining 80% is still warm in short-term memory. If you close the cover now, that cache evaporates within 48 hours. Pillar 3 locks the value into long-term storage through forced retrieval, a process cognitive scientists call the testing affect. The rule is simple: no new input until the previous chunk is pulled out of the brain purely by recall, not recognition. Here's the retrieval chain. At the end of every chapter, close the book and write on a blank index card the answer to 3 prompts. 1. What is the single-sentence argument the author would tweet to defend this chapter? 2. What numeric data or case study could the author cite as courtroom evidence? 3. What action will you take within 24 hours to operationalize the insight? If you cannot answer all 3 without peeking, reopen to the exact page where the answer lives, reread only that paragraph, then close and try again. The struggle of retrieval is the gym that strengthens neural pathways. Recognition is merely watching a workout video. After the final chapter, collect the cards, shuffle, and test yourself again the next morning. Research from Purdue University shows retention jumps from 25% after 1 passive read to 70% after 2 retrieval sessions, a lift that compounds with each successive day of quick self-testing. The method is finished, but the habit loop is not. True mastery is proven only when new knowledge changes an external outcome. Choose 1 card, just 1, and execute the specified action for a full week. If the chapter taught the 2-minute journal technique, journal for 7 days. If it outlined a market-size formula, build the spreadsheet and email it to a colleague. Behavioral follow-through is the only reliable indicator that the internal model has been updated. Everything else is intellectual cosplay. When the week ends, archive the cards in a single box file. 6 months later, a 5-minute card shuffle will resurrect the entire book faster than any highlighter parade ever could. You now own the complete Triforce: baseline speed unlocked by killing sub-vocalization, adaptive pace driven by the Pareto filter, and long-term memory forged through active retrieval. Deploy the system on your next mandatory read. 20 minutes of RSVP calibration, a rapid Pareto pass, and a stack of retrieval cards will turn a week-long chore into a 2-day victory, with comprehension that survives well past the final page. Imagine opening that same book a month later and still being able to reconstruct its central argument, key data points, and 1 concrete action you took because of it, without reopening a single page. That permanence is the hallmark of the 3rd pillar, consolidation, and it separates the Triforce method from every speed-reading gimmick that flashes across social media. Consolidation is not review. It is forced retrieval, and retrieval is a stressor that triggers long-term encoding. The science is unambiguous. Every time you pull a memory from scratch, you deepen the synaptic trail leading back to it. Skip this step and the first 2 pillars collapse into a short-term party trick. Start with the 1-hour rule. The moment you finish the rapid Pareto pass, set a timer for 60 minutes. No phone, no secondary task, no subconscious re-exposure to the text. During that window, your brain is in a biochemical sweet spot. The synapses that fired while reading are still labile, meaning they can be stabilized or allowed to fade. Stabilization demands effortful recall, so open a blank notebook and reproduce the book from memory using a 3-column layout. Left column, chapter title. Middle column, the single-sentence thesis you would tweet. Right column, the most surprising numeric fact or case study. If a chapter is missing from your reconstruction, that is not a failure. It is diagnostic feedback telling you the 20% marker was misplaced. Reopen only those pages, reread the minimum paragraph required, close the book, and fill the gap. The total extra time invested is typically 8 to 12 minutes, yet it cuts the forgetting curve in half. 24 hours later, run the same reconstruction test, but this time speak the answers aloud while standing. The physical act of speech recruits motor memory, creating a second neural pathway that doubles retrieval strength. Record the session on your phone. The file becomes a 60-second private podcast you can replay during a commute or workout. In controlled experiments at the University of Waterloo, subjects who added an audio retrieval pass retained 83% of key ideas after 1 week, compared with 37% for silent note reviewers. The microphone in your pocket is therefore a more powerful learning tool than the highlighter on your desk. On day 3, escalate from recall to application. Choose the single card whose action feels the most uncomfortable, that friction signals the highest leverage, and commit to a 7-day behavioral experiment. If the book argues that cold emailing industry experts accelerates career capital, send 1 email every morning for a week and log the response rate. If it claims a 10-minute mindfulness drill boosts working memory, run the drill daily and measure your DigitSpan score on a free online test before and after. Quantitative feedback anchors abstract theory to observable reality, transforming the book from an intellectual souvenir into an operational upgrade. At the end of the week, you possess 2 artifacts, a data set proving or disproving the idea and a lived memory that is now intertwined with the original concept, making future retrieval almost automatic. After the 7th day, archive the entire project, the book, the 3-column reconstruction, the audio file, and the quantitative results of your mini-experiment. Store them together in a dated folder, digital or physical, called the Memory Vault. The vault is not a trophy case, it is a spaced repetition engine. Schedule a calendar alert for 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months. Each alert triggers a 2-minute skim of your reconstruction notes and a replay of the 60-second audio, followed by a quick check on whether the behavioral change stuck. These micro-reviews take less time than scrolling one social feed, yet they export the memory from short-term warehouse into long-term storage where it can compound with future knowledge. Students who adopted the Vault protocol scored 2 letter grades higher on cumulative finals, not because they studied more, but because the information never decayed in the first place. The loop is now closed. You entered the text at 500 words per minute, filtered for the critical 20%, and forged the remainder into durable memory through deliberate retrieval and real-world action. The book is no longer an external object, it is an internal scaffold you can climb at will, adding new planks with every future title. Deploy the Triforce method on your next assignment, report, or self-development goal. 20 minutes of calibration, a targeted speed run, and a week-long consolidation experiment will turn information overload into a competitive edge, one that compounds for life.